What's going on, folks? I'm AutoMattock. We're going to talk about some air traffic control, and by that I mean anti-air. So when your opponent jumps and they attack at you, what can you do as Abigail? He's a big target, right? He's a lot taller than most characters, so your opponent can hit a jumping normal a lot sooner than they normally would. So I did go over some anti-airs with the Abigail Day 1 Fundamentals videos. That wasn't enough, and it didn't really explain the mindset behind what you can do and why it works. And really, I want to focus one of the focal points is parrying the jump in. That to me is one of the most important things in terms of the speed of it. So, and there's a lot more options. So let's go ahead and get into it. And because of that, V skill, that's probably the first thing I want to talk about. So the V skill will parry their jump in, and you can, I suggest, do giant swing, buffer into giant swing because the knockdown is good off of that, the medium plus giant swing. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to my knockdown video. But it's also important. This video is about anti-airs, right? But in my opinion, that situation isn't over until you understand what to do when you knock them down at the air. It's a very important concept. You can know how to anti-air, and then if it has a knockdown, if you don't do the right knockdown, it doesn't really matter that you anti-aired them, because you're not taking full advantage of the opportunity that it presented itself with. So to me, that's one of the best things you can do as Abigail. Although risky, it gives you V-trigger bar, and it's fast. The V-trigger, I actually don't know, the V-skill, I don't know off the top of my head when the parry is active. If I had to guess, it would be 3. Let me just take a quick look. Try to find it on the tool-assisted calculator, which he just released. And yes, it is 3. Hunga B High. That's the name of the parry. Hunga B High. Is that real? I don't think tool-assisted. He's a robot. Unless they program some sense of humor, whoever they is. Really? Hunga B. Where is it? V system. Hunga B High. Hunga B Low. So you want to use Hunga B High as an anti-air, right? That, to me, seems like very high rewarding and consistent. Now, the risk is that when your opponent doesn't attack you, you are left with a parry that's your recovery. And as far as I know, I think you can crush counter this. I think that's true. I don't really know for sure, but it seems logical to me. But in any case, you're in a recovery state and they can hit you. And if they crush counter you, it's a bit risky. But this changes your opponent's behavior. If your opponent is now empty jumping at you, this is a little bit like Colleen. If they're empty jumping at you, it means all of your other anti-airs are much easier. Not to say that your anti-airs are inconsistent. Like standing jab, you can do it too, and what? Crouching hard punch works as well a little bit. Back hard punch, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it unless you had V-trigger. It only has 2 active frames, and the hitbox seems kind of whack. But now that your opponent is empty jumping at you, you can do something like forward hard punch. Because, well, I guess I should program that too. Just a regular jump. I'll just do a neutral jump for now. But the point still remains. If they are just straight up jumping at you without hitting a button because they want to bait your parry, it's a free anti-air. You choose whatever you want to do. In that case, probably the best thing to anti-air with would be, yeah, I would say forward hard punch. Yeah, forward hard punch. So let's, again, they're jumping and probably forward hard punch into the strong giant flip. Yeah, probably medium punch giant flip again if they're empty jumping at you. That seems pretty good. Otherwise, the most, I wouldn't say, probably the more consistent, but not as nearly as rewarding as using that parry or the high damage off the forward hard punch. Probably the most consistent one would be just jab, standing jab. I mean, it's not super amazingly, it's not like Nikali's Season 1 standing jab, right? It's not brain dead. Standing jab itself has 5 frames of startup, but I think when it hits in the air, it'll be around 6, maybe even 7. So it's not that bad in terms of how fast it is. It just covers a lot of area. So even if they're jumping at a range like that, you'll still be okay, I think. So it's not bad. That's an example. See, that's doing it too early. So it's there. It's kind of cheesy, but you don't get much off of it. I've seen it been suggested that you go into this nitro charge off of that. I don't like it at all because you're so far away, and the truth is your opponent could just forward jump when they see nitro charge like that. And we'll get into that later. We'll start to answer those kinds of questions. But I don't like that at all. I would just hit standing jab and then see what they do. That's what I would do personally. Standing jab and then maybe a medium punch. For now, I think that's perfect. So what other options do we have? Crouching medium punch and crouching hard punch aren't nearly as impressive as I would like them to be, but it makes sense. It's a little bit like, some of it is perhaps me just playing online, and it's harder to see it. Crouching hard punch can crush counter. So at a distance from right here, maybe, if you collide with it, maybe a little bit sooner, it's possible to get a crush counter state, and then you can go into hard punch, giant flip. As you can see, I'm having trouble just doing it in training mode. And this distance, your opponent really shouldn't jump. There we go. Your opponent really shouldn't jump there. There's no reason for them to jump. So what they're really going to jump over is like something like standing hard punch. But you're too far away to even do that. So it's really anti-air with this crouching hard punch. They need to be right about here. And at that range, it's so difficult to see. And it's much slower than standing jab. And much slower. And standing jab being slower than the parry. And even just putting that into your opponent's mind. You have to do that. You have to keep them on the ground because you want to use your standing hard punch to poke at them. Your standing roundhouse a little bit. It's unsafe on block. But more so like you're standing strong and maybe crouching medium punch a little bit. But those are the reasons why your opponent would jump. So if they're away from that reason to jump, then there's really no point in having that at that range. But being aware of it still, because it's still a possibility. It's not impossible for them to jump. And the same is true for crouching medium punch. You can anti-air around the same ranges, but it's just too slow. I think it's way too slow for what it's worth. And you see I got a trade there. I had to do it much earlier. And again, the distance thing doesn't really line up. Theoretically, I know everything doesn't work as it is theorized, but right here, just even here, it's not even working that well. But it is an anti-air, in my opinion. It does have some airborne frames. It does seem to me that the startup of it and the active frames at the beginning of it are in the air only. So there is some implication there, I think. So it's there, but I don't think it's amazing. So jumping hard punch. This is not really. I feel like jumping hard punch isn't necessarily an anti-air. It's more like something you do in anticipation or reading something or something used very specifically, like maybe Vega's wall dive. So if he jumps in the air and you do jump hard punch, then it could be pretty good. And off of that jumping hard punch, it causes a juggle state, so you can do something like EX Abigail punch. That being faster than the regular ones, I think you can juggle any of them. But the height requirements and where you have to land off of it, I don't think you can have like much leeway. So maybe EX Abigail punch is the best. Super would be the most consistent. Super being 5 frames. So I think even if I hit him high like this, Super would see that should be totally fine. Yeah. So yeah. Jumping hard punch, I wouldn't call it an anti-air, but there is some things you can do with it that are unique. EX Nitro Charge. That is an interesting concept. So this move has armor on frame 3. You can grab them out of the recovery of their landing recovery. It's a little bit challenging, but it will punish them if you do this right. And that's pretty much the size of it, right? The regular one will be even trickier because the armor activates much later. So you have to preemptively use this and then let go of it and then time it right. But as you can see, your opponent, if you don't time it right, they can punish you. They can jump out of it. So yeah, the EX Nitro Charge is on frame 3. V-Trigger EX Nitro Charge armor is on frame 1. So you can do this really late, I think, right? Yep. But yep, I don't know the trick to timing this consistently, and there may not be one. It may just have to be just manually doing it properly. But this is certainly one of the more rewarding anti-airs. If you do this properly, EX Bay Area Sunrise is ridiculous. That knockdown is crazy stupid. Once people start seeing that, that's going to be where a lot of the complaints begin with Abigail. Is this throw right here. EX Bay Area Sunrise. It's +4. And as I said earlier with the knockdown situation with the parry and the giant flip, if you do this anti-air, it's great. But you have to know the knockdown, what you do after that, and what all the possibilities are. And again, I think I went over that in the knockdown video. But this knockdown I learned recently that it's +4. The regular one's +5 when you dash up. So, yeah. EX command grab, right? You do that, and then you dash up EX command grab, and then you will win the match the next decision. If you, well, you'll be close, depending on the health of the character. But the point is, it's really, really dangerous and damaging, and we'll get into that later. So yeah, EX Nitro Charge as an anti-air, it's pretty good if you can get that to time properly. Your EX Abigail punch is also pretty good. Now this is like this would be like the #1. It's gonna fix everything. It's gonna fix all your problems if you do it right. So I'm assuming I'll just check right now. I think it's gonna be armor on frame 3. That's typically how everything works. So I'm gonna look at the old. You should definitely Google tool assisted Street Fighter V Oki calculator. and take a look at this. I have a video, 3-minute video of how you can use this yourself. But EX Abigail punch, it doesn't say where it has armor, unfortunately. But I'm assuming frame 3 because of how consistent it is. Now, it's just the same. Now, wow, that is something I didn't want to see. There we go. Now, the thing that's good about this is that opposed to the armor of your parry, if they empty jump, they just land and they can crush counter you. I think so. But with this, if they empty jump, you'll still hit them. So to me, this is one of the most consistent anti-airs in terms of the speed of the armor that you have and actually hitting them. That's really strange. I think your armor expires or there's no armor at that point. Something like that, right? But see, just like that, the hard punch, I didn't absorb anything, but I still anti-aired her. So this, in my opinion, is one of the, why is it happening? I'm trying to make an educational video here. So it's going down a few points, just a little bit. But I still think it's one of the best anti-airs. Definitely something you want to keep in mind. What else do we have? That almost wraps it up. I did put crouching hard kick in my notes, but that's really, really, really specific. I can demonstrate. Now, there are some setups where you can dash up and either throw them or command grab them. So this is when you're at a +3 knockdown because your throw is 5 and your command grab is 6. Yeah, so it works out perfectly. So your opponent might want to jump away from the command grab and jump away from the throw. So if they jump away, then you can anti-air them. After a whiffed regular throw, you can anti-air them with crouching hard kick. Man, I should just do this, right? I should just show you exactly what I'm talking about. I could have been programming this as I was talking. But yeah, that's the idea there. I believe off of the back hard punch, you do have that knockdown. The what's it, Abby twist, something like that. So I'm gonna make my opponent stop jumping from here. I think this throw is meaty, and then I can anti-air them with crouching roundhouse. And this has a juggle state. So bada bing, bada boom. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So it's kind of interesting now that jump back OS is not a thing. You don't see that as often, people punishing jump aways. And that's kind of an interesting interaction, I think. You know, it takes away from me doing something like that. If I think they're going to jump back OS. But now it's just jump back for safety kind of thing. But it really wouldn't apply that much. So realistically, you probably, if you see it at all, you would see something like a neutral jump being punished. And then maybe I can get forward hard punch there. I don't know. Let's just try it real quick. I feel like I'm already, but this video is much longer than I wanted it to be, so why not, right? Let's see what we got. Oh, I can probably EX one of those, and then no. Okay, there's probably something there. Maybe a giant flip. But moving on. What is this? Forward hard. Oh, under V trigger. So first super is obvious, right? Super, you have a ton of range on this. I'll just get that out the way. That's 4 frame startup. Maybe, I don't know. It's probably less on the ground. Maybe it's 4 startup in the air. But yeah, that's pretty obvious that can be used as an anti-air. The last thing I want to go over is when you have V-trigger activated. So this back hard punch, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say your armor is active on frame 3, right? So therefore, you can start using these moves as an anti-air. I think back hard punch may be the best thing you can do. Maybe back hard punch into medium punch, giant flip. You want to absorb the hit and then let go. Yeah, something like that. But yeah, you can use these as anti-air. You probably go into the second option too. Yeah, that's there. But yeah, not a bad idea. Yep, not a bad idea. I think that's it. Yep, that about wraps it up. So again, the V skill, extremely important in my opinion, to at least work that in sometimes, because you gain V trigger. His V trigger is 2 bars, and you get a knockdown, and it's fast. And it'll condition your opponent to begin empty jumping at you. I think it'll condition your opponent to just stay on the ground. And then that makes your pokes better. Your standing hard punch, your things like, what an angle. And your, what else? Low forward, crouching medium punch. Then you can start using those pokes a little bit more liberally when you can send that message across that to jump at Abigail, there's a lot of risk involved. Even though he's so tall, you can hit your jump normals early. You're able to deal with it in various ways. So that's it for now. Thanks for stopping by. I hope we learned something. I'm AutoMattock.